Welcome in, Sweaty Fantasy Football Podcast, episode number 14. I'm Justin. Zach is with me today, and we've got a great episode for you today. It is 9 days until NFL kickoff. We're in the single digits, the countdown is on, and so we're going to give our flag plants for the 2025 season. We had an episode that came out at the very beginning of June, our early flag plants. This is like up against the season, preseason is ran, training camp is through. These are our guys that we're firmly planting our flag on that are going to be great for the 2025 season. So I'm so stoked.
Yeah, really excited for these. Absolutely. We've got some good overlap from the last time we did the show. I've definitely brought some new ones to the table. I'm really excited about these. These are guys I will be drafting it everywhere I can get them. There are multiple guys on this list that I am currently in drafts right now on Underdog, where I have either just drafted them or am looking to. So exciting stuff.
It's good putting your money where your mouth is. Um, yeah, so that's it's gonna be a great episode. I'm really excited to see who your flag plants are for the season and maybe have a little bit of debate on them. So to kick it off, you can go with your first guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to have one for every position. You actually have one of mine for the tight ends. I didn't do a tight end because I'll let you get to yours. But starting off at quarterback, I'm bringing Drake May to the table. The reason I am rolling with Drake May this year is obviously most of these are going to be cost-based decisions. The fact that Drake May is going outside of the top 15 quarterbacks is why I'm interested here. You look at did I say running backs? I'm at quarterbacks. What I'm looking for when drafting a quarterback is the rushing upside. That is no secret anymore that the rushing quarterbacks are the ones who are going to be able to like kind of give you a set the floor a little bit, and then the ones who are good at it, the ones who are elite passers as well, give you some ceiling as well. So Drake May is being drafted at QB 16 last year. He led the league in yards per carry. Other than Spencer Rattler. I do have to caveat that to say that he did not, that Spencer Rattler on his 18 carries did have a higher yards per carry average, but I'm using qualified rushers. I mean, I believe it's like the list I saw was, I think it's like 20, maybe 25 rushing attempts or something like that. But he was still top of the league in yards per carry. We see Josh McDaniels come in, an offensive coordinator who has historically been really good for these rushing quarterbacks. The most recent time he had one was in New England with Cam Newton. I don't know if you remember watching Cam Newton at that point in time. He
I
was
do.
not MVP Cam Newton or anything close to it. He was washed at that point. He actually never started and won another game outside of being coached by Josh McDaniels.
Do
But
you,
that year he was top two in rushing attempts, and he led all quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns that year. Go
just real
ahead.
quick, do you remember when he got a rushing touchdown and he took off his helmet? I'm
I'm
back.
back.
He was in fact
Yeah.
not back.
Oh, he was not in fact back, but Drake May is back for year two. So obviously just kind of that floor, setting that floor is why I'm so excited for Drake May. But also just in terms of ceiling, who I think he could be as a passer. Last year he was top 10 in completion percentage over expectation. And we all knew the situation he had last year. His weapons were some of the worst in the league. They got better this year. His offensive line was the worst in the league. You bring in two draft picks, one of which was Will Campbell, and you bring in a couple other starters along the line. Everything around him should get better. Um, and we think he's going to be able to maximize that rushing upside a little more. So that's why I'm bringing Drake to the table. I expect him to finish as a top 10 QB this year, fantasy wise. And I think top eight is absolutely in the realm of possibilities, at least on a points per game basis.
Drake May, this is a phenomenal pick. The fact that he's 16 is crazy. It seems like about 10 years ago, I remember one of my, I guess not really claims to fame in our high school league, I drafted Lamar. He had the year he had the breakout, and Mahomes the year he had the breakout back to back. But the fantasy community's got really smart in that we go after rushing quarterbacks really heavily. See Jaden Daniels. The fact that he's 16 is crazy. Like you look at this team where they spend the number 4 overall pick on a lineman, they severely upgrade the coaching. They spend a pick on Travion Henderson. They get Kyle Williams. They bring in Stephon Diggs. Like they're doing everything in their power to make this wide receiver room the opposite of what it was last year, where Jalen Polk was one of the headlining names. Um, little side note, he did get dropped in our league just about a year after Mr. Ledford traded a first and a second for him. So that was tough. Anyways, he should have a upgraded group of weapons to be throwing the ball to. And even if Travion rushes for quite a bit, it's kind of a rising tide raises all ships. Like you want to have a good offense because when you have a good offense, then you have more opportunities to maybe pull an RPO and scramble in on the one where you wouldn't have had that before with Drake May. So having a better offense, I mean, he's obviously a great rushing quarterback. He was picked third in the NFL draft. He's a really good quarterback. Or was he picked second? No, Daniels was
Third.
second.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
so
should have been second in my own opinion, but I'll get some hate for that because of the Jaden Daniels bros.
do you think Drake May would have done what Jaden did?
I I don't know. I will say I think that Drake May is still a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels is. I do still believe that to this day. I believe I'd go as far as to
Mhm.
say I think that Drake May's career will be better than Jaden Daniels, and that's even understanding and being fully transparent that he is very far behind Jaden Daniels, and I'm not even I wouldn't even go as far as to say that I think all of Jaden Daniels was situation or luck or whatever. Jaden Daniels is legit. Jaden Daniels is very good. Drake May I think is special. I think that Drake May's ceiling is like that top three to top two quarterback in the league. I think that he could be what a Josh Allen is to his team, and I think that Jaden Daniels is going to get that bump because of the rushing upside. Because in the fantasy community, he's always going to be very valuable. Um, but I don't really expect to talk about him in 5 years in the way that I speak about Lamar or Mahomes now. I could see it for Drake May.
Yeah. I also I like that you caveated the yards per carry with the starting quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Um,
He's a starter, man. If he didn't get the job, maybe I would have just lied and said he led the whole league.
well, that's awesome. I just think, I mean, they're going to be a really good team. They're obviously all in on Drake May. Like you want to see a team that's who even is their backup? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
I mean, they don't have anybody breathing down his neck. Like they have pushed in, so they signed Josh Dobbs to a 2-year deal. So they're all in on Drake May. They've given him the weapons to succeed. We still believe he's a talented quarterback. He's going to rush a lot. I just think this is one that I completely agree with, and I love getting like Dak and Drake May at the end of drafts. I think it's gonna be interesting in the drafts that we do together because I think we kind of have a little bit of the same strategy in that we like double tapping those quarterbacks late, especially Dak, and you're obviously very in love with Drake May.
Even if it's not, even if Drake May this year isn't a even if he doesn't tear it up, even if he doesn't have what Jaden Daniels did last year and we expect to do this year, even if he's not, Jalen Hurts or whatever, you know what I mean? Even if he's not Joe Burrow or whichever pocket passer QB really has the outlier touchdown the year this year. I do think he will be flirting with those numbers. And I think that at the QB 16 price tag, you look at the opportunity cost of drafting one of those top five quarterbacks versus drafting Drake May. The guys going around Drake May are roster depth at that point. They're the guys that you're taking where you're hoping you never have to start them. Um, and I do think that some of the reason for taking a Josh Allen is like, he's been a top two fantasy quarterback 5 years in a row. There is something that you know for sure about Josh Allen, but I know for sure that Drake May is going to be awesome. So, so I'm very
That's
comfortable with him.
a great pick. So my first flag plant is the one that we share. I think this is the guy that you kind of wanted. He was in my early flag plants on our episode that we released at the very beginning of June. Filmed it on 5/28, so it would have been out at the start of June. Is George Kittle. And when we did this podcast, he was by ADP, he was number 48. So you would have gotten him at the very back of the fourth. If you wanted to reach, you could reach for him in the middle of the fourth. Now his ADP is 31. And so obviously this isn't a hot take where I'm standing on an island defending a guy. I think the next two guys I have, um I'm a little bit more against the market, but Kittle is a guy that's just in my mind I see it's pretty clearly Bowers and McBride in the first tier. Kittle is firmly in the second tier, and then I don't really it's almost like the gap from Bowers and McBride to Kittle isn't how do I say this? The gap from Kittle to the fourth guy is way bigger than the gap from Kittle to Bowers and McBride. He was the tight end one in points per game last year. I think he missed 2 games, so Bowers was the tight end one. And obviously Bowers is a stud. I'm not taking anything away from Bowers, but Kittle is just so good. Um, like he's always been really good, and he's kind of morphed into a target guy. Early on in his career, he was more of a touchdown scorer who was a little more inconsistent because the targets weren't coming. But what's happened this offseason is that it seems like everybody is getting hurt. So they trade Debo. Ayuk is on the pup, so he's going to be out for at least the first 4 weeks. They're targeting maybe like a week 9 return for him. Jawan Jennings is dealing with a calf issue. Pearsall missed the first part of camp. Um, Demarcus Robinson got suspended for the first 3 games. Like, who do they have? They have McCaffrey and they have Kittle, and they're going to have to pass the ball 20, 30 times a game. So they're going to have 10 to 20 targets spread around to everybody else, and that leaves like 5 to 12 a game for George Kittle. Like a baseline of 5 targets is something that you don't really get with a lot of tight ends. Having that baseline with massive upside. He had some, I remember a couple of yak touchdowns that George Kittle had where he would catch the ball in the middle of the field and just like run around and run through people. I mean, he's just one of those guys that he sees people coming and he runs into them because he just loves hitting people so much. Um, but it's a necessity pick for me. I believe in Kittle the player, but just the fact that the offense is so depleted, Kittle he's just 100% necessary. Um, like I said, he's jumped up 17 picks since we did this in June, so he's jumped up over about 2 rounds. Um, but kind of the argument for me is when you're looking at the value, if you want one of the elite tight ends, you want to take Bowers in the at the 1-2 turn, maybe middle of the second, McBride middle to end of the second, or Kittle at the end of the third, to maybe if he falls in the fourth. Most likely you'd have to take him in the third. Like the guys that you're giving up at the 1-2 or at the 2-3, sorry, at the 2-3 turn, to get a Bowers, or even at the 1-2 turn to get Bowers. The I guess what I'm trying to say is the that you're giving up to get Kittle is so much less than to get Bowers and McBride, and I don't think the output is going to be that much different between the three of them.
Yeah, I actually don't view there to be a tier break between Bowers, McBride, and Kittle. Like you said, he was the tight end one in points per game last year. I think it's important to remember that obviously as fantasy players, we're a little skittish when it comes to age. We see, oh, he's going to play. I believe this is his age 32 season. We're a little worried about it. But if the cliff does not come, and we're obviously not betting on the cliff to come if we're drafting them, even in the first 5, 6, 7 rounds, nonetheless, or the third. I think that it's fair to say that he is the most talented tight end of the bunch. I think that he is a more talented tight end than either Bowers or McBride. He's just old. That's the only knock on him at this point. He's going to have better quarterback play than McBride is, less target competition than McBride will. I just I don't have a tier break at all. So to me, he's pretty far and away one of my favorite picks in fantasy drafts. Like really one of the only must drafts, and it sucks because I'm in a league with a bunch of Niners fans. So there's not a lot of leagues where home leagues at least where I'll get them. But my exposure is around 50% on underdog. Like I'm so in on Kittle. It's hard to not. It's hard to justify any other choice at tight end when you feel like you're going to have a chance at the overall tight end one, and it's such a big positional advantage in the way that it's more of a positional advantage than having the running back one or the wide receiver one, and you're getting them. cheaper than you have to pay for McBride or Bowers. I love Kittle so much this year.
So I was also looking it up with the age concerns. He's 31, but the 49ers this offseason signed him to a 4-year, $76 million contract with 40 million guaranteed. So the average annual value is a little over 19 million. Like the 49ers are very obviously not worried about him falling off. Like they've put all their chips in the middle of the table, and their guy is George Kittle. Like they paid him. They haven't been frantically trying to add pieces around him. I mean, they've been picking up players and they keep getting hurt. It's kind of actually insane. I don't I mean, you just can't make this stuff up where like the entire team is just they're just hurt. And you hope Kittle doesn't get hurt and McCaffrey doesn't get hurt because both players have dealt with injuries in the past. But barring injury, like if George Kittle plays 17 games, I think it's like a 50-50 with him and Bowers, who is the tight end one. And I don't think that's
Agree.
a super hot take. So to get him 2 rounds later, like we're at the 1-2 turn, who are you giving up? Like Genty, Brian Thomas. Whereas if you're picking at the end of the third, I mean, who would be at the end of the third? You're looking more like, oh, I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyways, you're giving up a lot lesser value. So that's why I really love Kittle. And yeah, you obviously like him too. All right, we'll move on to your second one.
My second one, gonna bring a wide receiver to the table. I have the wide receiver 37, who I really believe will finish inside of the top 20. And that's Roma Dunze. I believe that he is the Bears wide receiver one. I think that he is just by draft capital, he's obviously the most talented. You know what I mean? I think he's a better wide receiver than Luther Burden, obviously. You know what I mean? Just in terms of draft capital, a second round pick versus a first round pick. If I'm not mistaken, DJ Moore was a first round pick, but he's a little
A
older,
long
a
time
little
ago.
longer in the tooth. Yeah, that's the thing. And also, he just didn't seem super engaged last year. Like there's that clip that went viral of him literally walking off the field in the middle of a route, just not super engaged. I think that a lot of attention gets paid to the Ben Johnson, like the Amon Ra role, who's going to play the slot role. That's a lot of discourse I've heard this year, but I think that Ben Johnson as a coordinator is very good at maximizing the strengths of his team. And I think that Rome Odunze is just the best wide receiver in the room. And if he gets used like a true number one wide receiver, it's very easy to see him putting up an 11, 1,200 yard season, having an outlier touchdown season is in the cards. I could see him finishing as a wide receiver one. And at cost, at wide receiver 37, I just think he's so cheap. Again, I'm not leaving a lot of drafts without Roma Dunze. Another thing, Caleb Williams is top 12. I checked FanDuel before we went live. He's top 12 in odds to both lead the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. So we think that there's going to be, while you could say there's a lot of mouths to feed, we do expect the passing volume for this team to be high, especially when you consider the fact that the running back room is pretty sparse. The best running back, even if you're a DeAndre Swift fan, we have proof of concept of Ben Johnson not being a DeAndre Swift fan. So I really like Rome Odunze this year as a bet to be the number one wide receiver in Chicago.
Yeah, I think he's a great pick. He's an upside pick, a top 10 pick from just a year ago. And I think we've gotten spoiled with like the Jamar, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas. Like we forget that it does take players time to adjust to the NFL. And that goes for Caleb Williams too. So when you have a quarterback and a wide receiver that were both top 10 picks going into year two together, you can only hope that that connection is going to be an elite connection. Um, I think it looked a little bit crowded early on when they picked Loveland and Burden. I think you just have to kind of trust Ben Johnson to figure it out and scheme the guys open that are truly elite. And Roma Dunze is one of those guys. And like you said, it doesn't cost you a whole lot. Wide receiver 37, one of the problems with drafting Marv in his rookie year last year was that he was going at the back of the first. Like you were saying Marvin Harrison Jr. is a top 5 wide receiver as a rookie. Um, that obviously didn't pan out, but where you're drafting Rome, you're not making that bet. Like you have a lot of room for upside. I feel like you're drafting him maybe not at his floor. I don't know. What did he finish at last year? Do you know? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head where he finished last year. Just for some frame of reference, I mean, he's going one pick behind Jerry Judy. I'd much rather have Roma Dunze.
Hmm.
Two picks, or a few wide receivers behind Jalen Waddle. I think we get into him a little later. But Travis Hunter's ahead of him, could play corner. George Pickens, I really like this year, but Calvin Ridley, just not. I'd rather have Roma Dunze. Tet McMillan, I'd probably still rather have Roma Dunze. Zay Flowers, I would definitely rather have Roma Dunze. Jamison Williams, definitely rather have Roma Dunze. Rashee Rice, definitely rather have Roma Dunze. So just the further you go up the board, I really, really do like Adunze's chances over all of them to really be a difference maker. Maybe the floor is a little lower, sure. Um, but when you're drafting outside of the top 30 wide receivers, you're not really drafting for your floor. You're looking for the ceiling outcomes. You probably have your wide receiver one and two already. You're looking for a league winning flex at this point.
I mean, pick 78, you're in like the sixth, seventh, eighth round, depending on how many teams are in your league. And by that point, you already have your wide receiver one, two, depending on how you filled out your team, maybe even three or four. And he's coming in as your wide receiver five, and that provides an insane amount of upside off the bench. So last year he played 17 games. So this is, I guess, this could be the argument against Roma Dunze was he played all 17 games. He was the wide receiver 49 with playing the whole season. I mean, the Bears were a mess last year, so I tend to lean more on the throw it out when you look at last year's stats. He had 101 targets, 54 receptions. I mean, a 50% catch rate's pretty bad. 700 yards and three touchdowns. So I mean, if he breaks 1,000 yards, gets up to like seven or six or seven touchdowns, maybe five. I mean, he's already outperforming wide receiver 37. So you don't even have to project a massive step forward in order for him to pay off on wide receiver 37. And I mean, the offense is good, so you want pieces of that. And like we already said, when you're taking your wide receiver five, you're not necessarily drafting for floor. So I really like the Roma Dunze pick here. Speaking of not drafting for floor, that's kind of where I was going with my second pick with Jalen Waddle. He was, I will say, all three of these guys are guys that were early flag plants for me. They're guys that honestly, their situations of all, I would say, with the exception of the third one, and the third one's gotten a little bit better, but these first two with George Kittle and Jalen Waddle, their situation has gotten a ton better. So I mean, he still looks really good. He was the wide receiver 33 in mid-June. He's a wide receiver 28, so he's moved up a little bit. But kind of to paint the picture of what's happened for the Dolphins this offseason, they traded away Jonnu. I think Tyreek is going to regress. I think that's probably where the main pushback will be from you, or just the consensus, if there is any pushback, is that Tyreek isn't washed. I think Tyreek is washed. So they trade Jonnu. I'm projecting a step back for Tyreek. Achan is injured, and for a back that utilizes speed and his burst, a calf injury is a really, really not great injury to get. His week one availability is in jeopardy. I think he probably will play. And then Alexander Madison, I think broke his. Was he the one that? No, that was Jalen McMillan that broke his neck. I can't remember what Madison had. He got hurt. He's out for the year. So if Achan is out, Ollie Gordon is going to be starting at running back week one. And so if you have Ollie Gordon starting, a lesser Tyreek Hill, and really no tight end to speak of, Jalen Waddle gets vaulted in to being like the de facto wide receiver one, and I think has upside to be a top 10 wide receiver because he's just going to get peppered with targets. Now, one of the risky parts with this pick is the Tua factor. If Tua gets another concussion, we've seen what happens with a no Tua Dolphins offense. The offense kind of just falls apart. Mike McDaniels doesn't really know what to do once Tua goes down, which is kind of weird. Um, I think Tua is better than people give him credit for just because of what we saw with the Dolphins offense when he wasn't in it. But I just think he has potential to be top 10 and his situation is getting better. And he's 26, so he's at the prime age for a wide receiver. He's flashed it before. He was insanely talented coming out. He I mean he had a down year last year and then a little bit the year before too. So I think people are a little bit tired of getting burnt on Jalen Waddle. But I guess also they traded away some of their defensive players and one of their starting corners also got hurt. So they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. So I just think he has the potential to be really high. He's at pick 608, which even there, if you've got a couple wide receivers already, I think he gives the perfect amount of he's necessary in the offense, so he's going to be good in PPR with a lot of upside. Um, what do you think of Jalen Waddle this year?
I definitely won't push back on the Tyreek is washed agenda. I think that we might not see him go down to like 400 yards this year, but I don't expect to see honestly, even 1,000 would be a little bit of a stretch. It's easy to see the path, right? I mean, his first few years in the league where he was really good, he was seeing a target share of over 20%, right? And that's why he saw 20.8% in year one and then 22.5% in year two when he put up I think he was a wide receiver eight that year, you said?
Yeah.
And then now in the last 2 years, it's dipped to 16% and 15%. Very easy to see where if Tyreek regresses, Johnny Smith, a lot of vacated targets there, even Achan if he's not all the way healthy. It's very easy to see how that target share number can really bump up a bit, and he can get back to that scoring, that area of scoring. I'm not excited about the offense. I'm really not. I think that. I think there's part of me that might just be a little bit bored with the Tua McDaniels experiment. You know what I mean? I think that it still could end up being very good. I think for fantasy, I think it could still end up being, I mean, they could. I don't think anyone would be shocked if Tua was healthy. They won 10 games and Jalen Waddle's a wide receiver too. You know what I mean? I just think we have seen what it looks like when it's ugly. And let's say he is your second wide receiver or your third wide receiver, and it is kind of a pick you light on fire, which it could be. That scares me off a little bit. I don't hate the pick. I'm not fading Jalen Waddle per se. There are a lot of guys around him that I'm a little more comfortable pushing chips in on, but I understand the take. I'm overall lower on Tua than you are, I think, and just a little pessimistic about the direction of the team. I expect the GM to get fired this year. And I have a hard time seeing how Mike McDaniel stays around. Honestly, I think he'll probably be gone this year too. And I just think the vibes are not going to be great. I'm not super compelled with any of the moves they've made over the last few years. I think they have a little ways to go before they hit rock bottom, and they're on their way there. Might bounce back after that, but I just think they're a team trending in the wrong direction, and that's why I'm avoiding their wide receiver too.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my opinion, I think it's just a bet on talent. I think even in a bad situation, Jalen Waddle, me betting on Jalen Waddle does not mean that I think Mike McDaniels is necessarily around at the end of the year. I just think if he's the wide receiver one for a competent quarterback, then he has the talent to take off. Um, all right,
Here's
we'll
an
go on.
interesting
Oh,
question. Where do you rank, as far as talented QBs in the NFL, where do you think Tua should fall? Is he a top 10 quarterback? Is he a top 15 quarterback?
I would say
Micah would tell you he's top five, but
I would say he ranks around right in the middle. He's about right in the middle of the league, so I would put him at like 15 to 17.
interesting.
He's kind of one of those guys that like the offenses that he runs are good and they just function. Like I said, we saw I think more of the proof of like how bad the Dolphins were once Tua went down versus all their most of their guys were at least serviceable when Tua was in for fantasy, and the offense is functional. Like I remember there was a Monday night. Luckily it was a doubleheader on Monday night, but it was like Browns. I think it was Browns Dolphins, and it was like DTR versus I can't even remember who the backup was for the Dolphins. But yeah, I
Skylar
think I'd put him
Thompson
like
or somebody like that.
yeah, I think I would put him about 17, where there's a lot of guys I would take over him, but I think as long as he's healthy, I think he's not really one of those guys that's on the chopping block. Well, maybe he's more around 20. I think he could play himself out of a job.
What do you think, Jared Goff or Tua? I'm gonna ask you a couple of rapid fire ones.
Let's go off.
Yeah, it's Goff. Okay. How about Bryce Young or Tua?
I would go Tua.
Okay. Michael Penix or Tua?
Tua.
Baker Mayfield or Tua?
That's Baker pretty easily.
Pretty easily. Okay. Trevor Lawrence or Tua?
Oh man. Oh man. I think I would go.
Man,
That
the
one's,
fact that you have to think about it makes me so sad.
I mean, I think I'd probably go Tua.
Really? Okay.
I think
Those are
so.
all guys that I would take over Tua. Maybe Bryce Young is iffy, but yeah, I think I'd take Bryce Young for the ceiling of what he could be over Tua.
That's fair. I think this is a make or break year. I mean, for the GM and Mike McDaniels especially. But even with that, Tua, I mean, you could see if it all blows up this year, you could almost see a new GM and and coach coming in and using him as like a 1 year bridge.
Hmm.
Kind of like draft a quarterback in the first round, sit behind Tua for the first year. Because he's a good enough quarterback that I think if you picked a quarterback in the first round, you'd feel comfortable sitting him for 10, 15 games or even the whole season. Let him
Yeah,
develop and then feel confident rolling him out the next year.
yeah, I can agree with that.
Do you think there's an outcome where they win 12 games and get back to the original Mike McDaniels Tua high flying offense of
No,
old?
I don't. I think that that is outside of the range of outcomes.
You think McDaniels has been figured out?
No, I think Tua has been figured out. I think that everything about, I think the reason you see Tua leave the offense and it kind of disintegrates is because it is so tailored to what Tua can do. It is so tailored to disguise the limitations of Tua that when you take Tua out of it, it's trying to shove a round peg in a square hole.
Okay.
I think that Tua has some very severe limitations. I don't think that he has a future as a starting QB in the NFL. I think that he is firmly below like the Dalton Carr line. If we have a quarterback this good that we don't have to replace him. If you have a quarterback worse than this, you need to be bringing in a QB. You know what I mean? I think that like Derek Carr at his peak and Andy Dalton at their peak. I think they were better quarterbacks than Tua is, and that Tua has been disguised by an offense with just extreme speed, a very creative head coach that's really been on the forefront of a lot of the offensive innovation over the last few years. Um, yeah, I think that if he would have been in a lot of other situations, I think if you drop him onto honestly like probably 16 to 25 of the other teams in the NFL, I think he would have never gotten the extension, and I think he'd probably be bouncing around as a backup at this point.
So do you think McDaniels should get another job,
Yes.
head coaching job? Or do
I
you
think
think
he
he's one of
deserves it.
these?
He's good enough. I do not think that he is a can't handle the CEO duties of being a head coach and is better suited to be a coordinator. I believe he can be a head coach. I understand if nobody wants to, because he did really hitch his wagon to Tua. You know what I mean? He did really put all his eggs in the Tua basket. But my take would be that I think that was more out of necessity. You know what I mean? You're not really going to come into the situation and be like, no, I don't really like this quarterback that we drafted at 5 overall. Um, I think he made do with what he had. I think he knew he needed a confident Tua to be able to run the offense. He needed Tua to be very confident in his abilities to point and shoot and do exactly as he was told. And I think that's a lot of why he was so outspoken for Tua. But no, I think that he is. I think McDaniels is definitively better than some of these coaches we see struggle at the or some of these offensive coordinators that struggle with head coaches like Cliff Kingsbury. I think that Mike McDaniels can do it. And I do think eventually, at least, he will get another shot too, and we'll be good at it.
Do you think, so let's say the Bengals are bad this year. They lose a lot of games. Zach Taylor gets fired. Do you think they should go hire Mike McDaniels?
Wouldn't fire Zach Taylor personally.
Even after all this time?
I wouldn't. I think they could miss the playoffs, and I'd keep Zach Taylor. I think I know what Zach Taylor is. I think I know what the problem is with the Bengals. I know why the Bengals are not going to make the playoffs this year, and it has nothing to do with Zach Taylor. I understand that you have to keep Bengals fans buying season tickets, right? And a lot of times that's just a fresh face, a new face in the building. But if I was the owner of the Bengals, I believe that Zach Taylor can lead a Super Bowl caliber offense, and there are other things that need to be figured out on this team. I would value the continuity of Zach Taylor and that relationship that him and Burrow have built over the years, and just the way they know each other situationally. I would value that over a new face and rolling the dice again. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. All right, I'm through two. You are through
I
two as
think I've
well.
got my third. Yeah, I think I got my running back coming up.
So we'll
Uh,
take
oh,
a
we'll take a
break and
break.
we'll be
Yeah, we'll
back.
take a break.
All right, I'm gonna kick it off with your third guy.
My third guy is a running back, and that running back is RJ Harvey. He is currently the RB21 from Fantasy Pros consensus rankings. And really, I just think that it's very possible that he ends up being, especially down the stretch when it matters in the playoffs. I think his ceiling is a lot higher than that. The main reasons behind that are we talked a little bit about rushing as a quarterback kind of being a cheat code. Receiving running backs are very much the same thing in PPR leagues, which is most of what play in, most of what most people play in these days. RJ Harvey had a solid pass catching profile coming out of college, and we see him go to a Sean Payton offense, which has always used the running backs in that fashion. And since Sean Payton has been with the Broncos, he has ranked fifth and first in running back target share since he got there. I think that RJ Harvey will be the main beneficiary of that in the offense. Another reason I really like his situation is the offensive line. The Broncos' offensive line was arguably the best in the league at that last year. They led the league in both pass block win rate and run block win rate. And there's not really a lot of turnover on that offensive line. We expect it to again be very solid. And then you look at his main competition being J.K. Dobbins. I I do think it matters early in the season. You know what I mean? I think that's why they brought him in. They know that they need someone to really kind of grind out the between the tackles runs early in the year. But I think as RJ Harvey comes into his own and starts to take over that role, I think that his backfield share will go up. And also, J.K. Dobbins before last year was like even going into last year, he was in a great situation last year and was extremely underdrafted because he's injury prone. He's lost 2 years of his career to significant injuries. Had his healthiest year last year, and I think it's possible. You never want to bet on injury, obviously, but if you had to, RJ Harb or J.K. Dobbins is probably closer to the top of the list than the bottom of it. So I think it's very possible we see him down the stretch in a high-powered offense, supported by a great defense. They'll be in good, positive game scripts, catching dump offs from Bo Nix. I think it's just a really good situation for a running back who had a decent profile coming out of college and great draft capital.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Bo Nix does really well is he's really good at short throws. That's kind of what the offense has got him into is doing a bunch of short throws and then take a couple medium and long shots once you baited the defense up a little bit. He's going to have a lot of checkdowns to presumably RJ Harvey. J.K. Dobbins, that's not his strong suit, is pass catching. So, I mean, you're walking in, like you said, I'm impressed you said a high-powered offense. Is that just because of Sean Payton, or are you coming around on Bo Nix?
And solely Sean Payton. Bo Nix is above the Tua line, but he is firmly below the Jared Goff line. Trevor Lawrence, I would not trade Trevor Lawrence for Bo Nix and two firsts if I was a Jaguars fan.
Oh,
Maybe
for
maybe
regular
two is
NFL.
aggressive. Maybe two is aggressive. Maybe two. Maybe one. I'll pull it back and say one. I think that Trevor Lawrence is firmly a first round NFL draft pick better than Bo Nix.
Really?
Yeah, maybe a little more than that.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, obviously, you know where I stand on Bo Nix. This is a debate. I'm interested to see how it'll shake out this year because I think somebody's going to look really dumb. Um, our
Somebody being
like,
me or
well, in our league,
somebody we know who may be purchasing a jersey.
yeah, like Braden
Okay.
purchasing a Bo Nix jersey. That's going to look real good in his transaction history. In our league, we've got some pretty staunch haters of Bo Nix. I'm very in on Bo Nix, and I don't know that there's really an outcome where it's a medium season. Maybe he does. Anyways, I digress. RJ Harvey, it's going to be a good offense. Dayton is a guy that we love. Bo Nix is just his next installment of um, get the ball out quick, get it to your running back. RJ Harvey is the beneficiary of that. I think it's a great pick. Where is he being drafted? Do you know? I want to
I know
say
that he is RB 21. I don't know overall ADP where he falls.
so. RB 21 would be somewhere around the 50s. So he'd be like about a fifth round pick. Do you feel confident taking RJ Harvey in the fifth?
Yeah, I do expect him to, when it matters, to kind of down the stretch this season. I expect him to be an RB1. I think that. Let me get hot. Let me pull up my running backs on Fantasy Pros and kind of go near the top. I think that at cost, I'd so much rather have RJ Harvey than Bucky Irving. At cost, I'd rather have him than Kyron Williams. At cost, and honestly, as we move down the list, like we look at guys going ahead of him like Brees Hall, who is in kind of a contentious situation with Braylon Allen right now. We look at like a Chuba Hubbard. I think that RJ Harvey will comfortably outscore Chuba Hubbard this year. Just guys like that.
Do you want to make a fab bet on that?
Yeah, I do.
How much you want to put on it? I mean, we could just do straight up.
How much you want?
Just do, I don't know, 10 fab?
10,
5,
10
10?
fab. Yeah, let's do
10
it.
works with me. Okay,
10
RJ
fab.
Harvey
I think
versus
RJ
Chuba.
Harvey, yeah, outscores Chuba. I have some Chuba thoughts for sure.
Okay.
We can get into yours. I think I've kind of spoken my piece on RJ Harvey if you want to get into your Chuba thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I like RJ Harvey and I like Chuba more. He's my third and final flag plant for the year. He's just a guy that I think is a little bit undervalued in that he's 100% the workhorse for this team. I don't worry at all about Rico Dowdle eating into it, into his workload. He was running back 14 last year. He's running back 18 by ADP, so he's being drafted a little bit behind where he finished last year. I remember I brought this stat up in our early flag plans, and it was kind of surprising, so I just wanted to bring it up again. He was third in rushing yards over expected. Number one and two were Henry and Barkley. And so if you're third in a rushing category, only behind Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, that's a pretty good stat to be at. Um, he was eighth in yards per rush at 4.8. And and over this offseason, the reason that I'm still in on Chuba is because everything's kind of looking up for the Panthers. Like you've got this Bryce Young had this maybe resurgence at the end of last year. I don't know. I mean, the hope for just general enjoyability of the NFL is that Bryce Young truly did take a step. Like I want to see a Panthers game come up. Like I'm looking at the schedule for the week and I'm like, oh, Thursday night, it's the Panthers. That's awesome. I'm excited to watch this game. So Tet is one of those guys. Tet McMillan is one of those guys that has rocketed up boards. Everybody's hype. He's drawing a lot of comps to like Mike Evans. He's a big body, true alpha number one. And it's, in my opinion, it's a rising tides raise all ships. Like if we can get down closer to the end zone, I think Chuba, his touchdown number could go up. I didn't pull up his touchdowns from last year. I think I want to say he had like 10 combined, maybe or 8. Let's see, I'm pulling it up. He had 10 rushing and one receiving touchdowns. Um, I think with an efficient offense, he could be one of those guys that pushes it more towards 15 touchdowns. And picking him in the fifth round, I'm very comfortable picking Chuba in the fifth round as my running back two. I will say I don't know that I love him as a running back one. Like if I punt running back, I don't know that I love it. He's not super great at pass catching, so that could be a potential knock and why you like RG Harvey over Chuba. Um, I just think this offense is going to be better, and I think Chuba's a direct beneficiary of that.
A lot of where I push back on it really comes from the fact that I do think Rico Dowdle is a good enough running back to steal carries from Chuba. So me and you, obviously, we're on the opposite side of the Chuba conversation. We actually had a trade this offseason, in which you gave me your 2028 first round pick, and I gave you Chuba Hubbard straight up. And in doing so, one of the things I looked at with Chuba Hubbard was, where did his production come from last year? What was the what was there a pattern I could find in where he was performing well? And I think that really what that was volume. I think that volume is going to dry up a little bit. We know from the way that they've drafted running back since Dave Canales got there that they do not want to be giving Chuba Hubbard the kind of volume that he was getting last year when he was performing for fantasy. The rushing yards over expected stat. It does move my needle a little bit. Yes, I do think that that's a valuable stat. But when you take that on a per attempt basis, he does drop a little bit. And then if you go to yards after contact on a per attempt basis, he falls out of the top 25. Um, I do think that that stat is probably a little more noisy. I just think that the volume that supported him last year is not going to be there. I think that Rico Dowdle can catch passes as well as he can, and Trevor Etienne, who they drafted in the fourth, is known a little bit for being one of those pass catching running backs. I think that obviously, I'm still not super in on the Panthers defense. I don't think there's going to be a lot of positive game scripts for him to really work well in the fourth quarter. I just think that I think he's fine at cost. I never look at a roster with Chuba Hubbard on it and think, oh, that's a weakness. I just think that the upside that he flashed last year, I don't think it exists in the offense this year.
That's fair. That's fair. We have our bet. We know where we stand on that.
I would much rather have RJ Harvey who's being drafted behind him. I will reach over Chuba Hubbard to take home RJ Harvey for sure and redraft this year.
That's fair. I think I would take Chuba over RJ Harvey, but I can see why with the pass catching. If you don't believe in the offense and you don't think the touchdowns are going to be there, um, that does make it a lot harder. It feels like a bet on Chuba Hubbard is a bet on the Panthers, whereas a bet on RJ Harvey, the Panther or the Broncos could be not super great, and if he gets a bunch of PPR catches over the year, he could still get inflated. Like if the Panthers fall apart and this is the end of Bryce Young, I think Chuba could be like a solid running back 35. Like if if it really hits the fan, he might just be toast. Just because I don't think he can prop himself up with catches.
Yeah, I want to love Bryce Young, as you were talking about, just for like the love of the game. I want Bryce Young to be amazing. I just am nervous. I really am nervous. I love Ted McMillan. I love a lot of the things they've done. I'm just nervous about the limitations of Bryce Young. I really am.
I mean, it opens up so much, like a maybe a potentially Jatavian Sanders breakout, um, a Tet McMillan truly returning on the investment that you have to make either in rookie drafts or as a fifth round pick. Like a fifth round pick is still a solid starter. So you're betting on Ted McMillan being that much of an alpha with Bryce Young to be a good week in, week out starter. Um, and Chuba obviously as well in the fifth round. Again, a solid starter. Like if you're going wide receiver early and you take Kittle, there's a chance that Chuba is your RB1. And if the Panthers stink, then you just let your fifth round pick on fire for either Chuba or Tet, and that would stink.
Yeah, I do look at the guys going behind Chuba, and I'm okay with all of them. I think that I'd rather have Chuba than James Conner. Trevion is fairly close, just because of the situation. The Pats, I think they'll be good. They'll be solid, but I don't know if they have the I don't think I think Ramondre Stevenson will get touches this year. You know what I mean? I think that it's possible Chuba finishes in front of him. They're pretty close to me. DeAndre Swift, obviously risky. David Montgomery's an RB2. You know what I mean? Isaiah Pacheco is We don't really know what to do with him. So like I'm okay. Like that feels like the range that Chuba Hubbard should be in. But you start looking above him. I see Kenneth Walker one click above him, and I can't put Chuba ahead of Kenneth Walker. I look at Amarian Hampton a couple clicks above Chuba, and I don't see a path for Chuba Hubbard to outscore Amarian Hampton this year. Um, yeah, he's a safe pick. He feels like a safe pick to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, that is our flag plants. We'll move into the NFL news. We moved this to the end just because A, I'm busy and I don't get it up in time, and there's already lots of news that happens in between when we record. But also, we were talking before, and Zach made the comment, like there's people that are smarter and more plugged in than us that are breaking down the news. So we'll give our 2 cents, but if you've made it this far in the podcast, you've probably already got your news from somewhere else, and like, you've already been looking into it. So we'll give our 2 cents. The big news is
Terry
Terry
McLaurin, want
McLaurin.
to jump off there?
Yeah, Terry
Yeah.
McLaurin with a 3-year contract. It's a big contract. I worry a little bit simply for Terry McLaurin. He was already a guy that it's kind of like the cool take to be like, well, there's touchdown regression coming because he's never had this many touchdowns and all the stats like I think he had less than 1,000 yards, but he still was a top. Like he didn't?
He had 1,000 yards. I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure.
I
I'm not
can't.
100%. I'm getting on Google for you now, but I
Okay.
do believe he had. I want to say he had 1,100 actually.
Okay. I can't remember the exact stat then.
1096.
1096. So he barely cleared 1,000. I mean,
13 touchdowns.
13 touchdowns on 1,096 yards is, I mean, that's really hard to do.
I agree with the regression. I think regression is coming. I don't think it'll be as aggressive as people think. I don't think we're going to see a regression to a true mean of what we've seen over Terry McLaurin's
No,
career because he hasn't had Jaden Daniels' entire career. But
no.
he had some wonky touchdowns for sure. Into that Bengals game, into that Cowboys game. Like there was some luck that went his way for sure.
I mean, that's part of the game we play, though, is some luck needs to bounce your way. I'm really curious to see. So last year we had Ayuk and CD that were paid. I think actually Ayuk was paid like a day. He was paid like August 25th of 24, and Terry McLaurin was paid August 26th, or no, 24th. So they were basically paid 364 days apart. Um, and both of those guys got off to a really slow start. Ayuk obviously got hurt and completely derailed his already bad season, but CD, it took him a while to get back up, ramped up. I'm curious to see if there's any lag on McLaurin or if that was just those two guys in their specific situations. Um, I think it's a good thing for Jaden Daniels, but I don't think I'm going to be drafting McLaurin anywhere.
I like McLaurin a lot. I do. It'll be hard to. I don't really know exactly where he's going. I don't want to overvalue the I don't want to overrate the touchdown regression and the ramp up period. I think that by the time we're drafting, I think those are going to be baked into his price a little bit. Because what was he was a wide receiver six last year, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
He was a top. He was close to wide receiver 5. I don't remember exactly. 6 sounds correct.
I think he was a wide receiver six last year, and he's going as a wide receiver 18 this year. I think a lot of that touchdown regression is already baked in. You know what I mean? You're not drafting him to be your wide receiver six this year. If you're drafting him at 18, um, I think it is a little bit hard to see a top 10 finish, but he feels somewhat safe. You know what I mean? He will be the number one in Washington. They will be a an efficient offense. You know what I mean? What with the young superstar Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, that you can obviously count on that offense to be good. So, yeah, I'm not going to fade him too hard at cost, but there are concerns for sure.
So guys that are going around him, he's going 2 spots ahead. This is according to Draft Sharks ADP. He's going 2 spots ahead of Kenneth Walker. I think I'd rather have Kenneth Walker. DK.
I can agree with that. Yeah, I think it's close. I think I'd rather have Terry.
What about Omarion?
I'm probably going to take Amarian.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys. I mean, he's a couple spots ahead of Chuba. I think I would take Terry over Chuba.
I think I'd
So I
take
mean
Terry over Chuba by a wide margin.
he's 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 in a good spot. I think he's fairly accurate. I think just the worry is like if he comes out in the first 3 weeks, he's getting like 3 catches for 27 yards. That's what he averages through 3 weeks. That's pretty scary, and that's pretty bad for your fourth round pick. Like
He can lose you some weeks, yeah.
that's a guy that actively, like you just said, he actively loses you weeks where like you look up and you're 1-3 and Terry scored you 5 points a week in PPR and you're like, ooh, that's when it really gets hard. I think kind of something that's interesting to talk about is like during draft season we think this guy is going to be the RB 18 or this guy is going to be the wide receiver. He's going to be a top 24 wide receiver. But then we switch into like we're playing games every week and we're trying to it doesn't matter if this guy's going to average the RB 18. Like he starts off his year and he stinks and we've been waiting for football for 7 months and now all of a sudden he's bad for the first 3 weeks. Like it's hard to stomach. So there's something to be said for getting off to a quick start and that's one thing that worries me about Terry. Football's almost back.
Oh man.
Oh,
I think about it probably at least once a minute, I'd say. Yeah, my productivity's dropped, admittedly. No, I'm just kidding.
for legal purposes, no, it has not. Another Commanders piece of news, Brian Robinson traded to San Francisco. This is really the big beneficiary here, Bill.
Bill, 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 Bill. So
Oh, the
excited.
classic. I mean, this one, to me, it nerfed Garendo. I immediately dropped Garendo on waivers. He was, in my opinion, one of the most valuable handcuffs you could have. With Brian Robinson signing, they brought him in. Shanahan said he is there too. Garendo becomes immediately useless unless Robinson gets hurt, like all the other San Francisco players do. I think this provides a bump to Austin Eckler, Bill. Um, I mean, yeah. What's your take on this outside of Bill?
There is no outside of Bill. Bill is my way, my truth, and my light at this point in my life. I may propose. I may pull a Travis Kelce and propose to Bill if I ever meet him live. You know what? I'm so in love.
Have you considered trading high, or are you
Yes,
just
I've
fully
tried.
riding the wave?
I sent a bill trade this morning actually. I'd love to hear your take. I offered Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt to the Jaden Daniels owner and a very a big Commanders fan. He also has Terry, so he's in on the Commanders offense. I offered Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Amarian Hampton for Justin Jefferson. What are your thoughts here?
Oh, that's a long ways off. Unless you're
You think so?
unless you're way in on Bill.
What do you think Bill's worth? You think Bill's worth a first round pick?
No.
Really? What could he be worth if not a first? Because like, what Bill owner would ever trade him for a second? You know what I mean?
So I think the problem is they've come out and talked about Chris Rodriguez is the guy that's supposed to be the first and second down. Eckler's going to be the passing down. So he's really going to be working in with Chris Rodriguez on first and second downs. And if you believe, I mean, you could believe that he has the skill to just completely take over from Chris Rodriguez, and that's fair. This isn't a pro Chris Rodriguez take. Um, but if he's a guy that's working in on first and second downs, I mean, how valuable it really is that?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But I've seen Chris Rodriguez be there. He's been there for a few years, right? He's
I
like
think so.
split touches. He's like a split touches with Dexter McCluster kind of running back. I'm just not concerned about. I just don't care about him. I really don't.
That's fair.
I think that you don't trade Brian Robinson away after having because Chris Rodriguez looks like he can handle the first and second down role, and Chris Rodriguez has been there for years with Brian Robinson. I think that it's going to be the Bill show.
I will say there is rumors that they tried to trade him last offseason too. They're just out on Brian Robinson. I don't know if that's true or not, but they may have looked up the pro Bill take is that they looked up and they said, "We have Bill and we can get something for Brian Robinson Absolutely. We're going to ship him out of town because we have a guy that's better. So we don't have to make this a competition and hurt Brian Robinson's feelings or fight with the general manager because we're paying Brian Robinson more than Bill, and so we need to be playing him or the fans get mad. Like we can just trade him because we have Bill in the building. Like that's the pro Bill take.
I think it's just, to me, what it is, it's such an easy path to a very valuable role. You know, there were some whispers about could Brees go to the Commanders this year, and like I had some conversations about what is Brees Hall worth if he goes to the Commanders. You know, and it's like you feel like his value might skyrocket if he goes there. You know what I mean? It is a
Hmm.
valuable running back spot. It's a very clear path to a lot of carries. And what's the main knock of Ja'Cory? It's the fact that he was a seventh round pick, but we understand why he was a seventh round pick, and it's not by any result of his own talent. You know what I mean? It's not any by no fault of his own was he a seventh round pick. You know, we could um pontificates on where he would have gone if he never missed his last season as long as we want, but we understand that he would have gone higher than he did had he not had the eligibility issues. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
say a guy like an RJ Harvey or a Caleb Johnson would have came into the Commanders offense. You know, we'd be drafting them crazy high. And I think that it's okay to say that I think that Ja'Cory Cross-Humera can be that guy.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that he could be. I'm not betting on it. I think actionable advice, if anybody gives you like a mid to early second for him, I probably would just cash that and move on. Because where did you, I mean, he was an undrafted guy that you took. So you're basically trading your three fab that you used to pick him up for like a high second. I would take
I
that.
think I think that's bad process. It's not what you paid for a guy. You have the guy on your roster. You don't have what you paid for. You know what I mean? It's in this game of trading assets and trying to concentrate assets into production windows. You know what I mean? You got to trade what you got, not what you paid. You know what I mean? That's a easy way to lose some of your surplus value just because you got it at a discount. You know what I mean?
So just
I I am okay with there is a world where I'd trade him. You know what I mean? But I just and if you offered a guaranteed early second, you know, there's a world where I have a hard time passing that up. You know what I mean?
so
But I
I offer you Tyler's 2027 second. Would you take that?
man, I'd
I
think about
mean,
it.
yeah, and see, I wouldn't even consider sending that offer.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't. You don't know ball. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't
No,
know Bill.
yeah, you don't know that. That's what I was. That's what I mean. Overall, is you don't know about Bill. Um, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do think I'm leaning into it a little bit aggressively. I think that obviously anyone who finds their sleeper is going to really hang on to them really tight. You know what I mean? I'm going to by will. I'm going to will this guy to be something. So um, yeah, I think an early second is probably more than fair. You know what I mean? I think that's probably a good deal. I think I'd probably take. I wouldn't be happy about it, and I'd be way more upset to lose Bill if Bill ends up being the truth for a second than I would be happy to get the second if Bill ends up being Royce Freeman. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's a little bit of it, but yeah, I'm playing with emotions with Bill these days.
Matthew Stafford has been at 100% for the past week. It seems like the Rams have done the Rams thing. They've done it the smart way, and it seems to be working out. Now, that being said, his re-injury risk is still high. I mean, he takes a good pop even week one, and he could be back out with his back injury. But for now, I mean, this is wheels up. Puka is firmly back in consideration at the end of the first round to me. Kyron is a great pick. Devontae is a great pick. All these guys are great picks. Um, as long as Stafford is 100% healthy. And so I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast earlier today, and they were going through a list of guys that have had lots of 100-yard games throughout a season, and so the record is held by Calvin Johnson with 11 100-yard games in one season. Cooper Kupp had 9. I think somebody else had 9. There's like 3 guys that Stafford has supported to having lots of 100-yard games in one season. He supported Calvin Johnson. He got Cooper Kupp to the Triple Crown. I think skill is not a question with Matthew Stafford. He's obviously, do you think is he a first ballot Hall of Famer in your eyes?
I'd really want to look at the class who will be on that first ballot before I answer, because I think that there are quarterbacks of his era that I do have ahead. I don't think there's any world in which you look at Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning and put them in after Matthew Stafford. Um, but like, let me get hot. Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Famer over Ben Roethlisberger. Is that a hot take? I don't know if that's
I
a
don't
hot
think
take
so.
or not. It shouldn't be. No, Matthew Stafford should be in the Hall of Fame. I do believe that.
I mean, does he have one or two Super Bowls? Did he win? He
What?
didn't win one with Detroit, just with the Rams.
No,
Detroit was
Detroit
a hot
was
mess,
always horrible. Yeah,
which is
never
crazy.
close.
Like, how do you
I
run a
know, right?
franchise that bad where you have Matthew Stafford who will literally, I mean, you've seen the video where he takes a hit and he made the throw, he throws a touchdown and then he just like falls down to the ground holding his arm. And
He took some punishment in Detroit,
that's
man.
probably where all most of his back issues came from. Anyways, Stafford being 100%, it's phenomenal for the Rams. It's phenomenal for all the Rams players. Kenny Pickett to the Raiders. I think the Browns are pretty clear that Joe Flacco is the guy until they want to give the rookies a shot. I think it's good to not have Kenny Pickett sitting there because I think Kenny Pickett would be a pretty severe downgrade for like Njoku and Judy. Do you have any quick thoughts on Pickett to the Raiders?
Honestly, no. I do not have any
That's
actionable
fair.
data. I do not have any opinions that are worth listening to about Kenny Pickett to the Raider.
Jacoby Myers requested a trade. I think he kind of looked up at the end of the offseason and saw, oh, everybody else is getting paid. I kind of want to get paid. Maybe if I say I want to get traded. Um, I mean, we'll see. I guess with that, they signed Amari Cooper to a 1 year deal. The Raiders did. So that's kind of meh. Obviously, if you're still around this time of the offseason without a team, you're probably not like cream of the crop. So, I mean, not really a whole lot there. We'll have some takes on that if Jacoby Myers does get traded. Spencer Rattler, name the starting quarterback for the Saints over your Tyler Shuck. I think we've talked about this on so many podcasts, but I think you can go from Rattler to Shuck. You can't go from Shuck to Rattler. If you put in Shuck, he starts 0-7 and looks awful. Going to Rattler is basically just immediately pulling the plug on Shuck's entire career. But if Spencer Rattler goes 0-7, they go, we gave this guy a shot. Let's see what the rookie can do for the rest of the year. So I think it's a smart play, and it keeps. I think this is actually probably better for Shuck.
Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I got to pipe up and talk about Tyler Shuck, my guy. No, I've kind of, as I've thought about it, I've kind of lost hope for Tyler Shuck in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I don't really see a world where he plays well enough after Spencer Rattler gets benched to, not just be replaced by whatever quarterback comes in next year. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate for Tyler Shuck. I think that, for his sake, I wish maybe he went a couple rounds later in the draft and maybe went somewhere where he could be a backup for a couple years. You know what I mean? I think Tyler Shuck to the Rams like would have been interesting at the very least. You know what I mean? In the
Hmm.
fourth round. But yeah, I just not super excited about this Saints team this year, man. I'm really not. I've stopped trying to trade for Chris Olave finally in my main league. I tried to do that for a long time. Yeah, just it's yeah, bad year to be. I guess it's not really usually ever a really great year to be a Saints fan, at least since Breeze left. But yeah, not a fun year to be a Saints fan, man.
No, it's definitely all looking towards 26. How high of a draft pick can we get, and can Kellen Moore handpick his guy for 26 and beyond? How old is Olave? Do you know? Like, will Olave be of the age where he really matters when they start to
Yes,
be?
yes, he's young. He was in the Garrett Wilson draft class.
He's 25.
He's yeah,
Okay, so he'll be 26. He'll be 26 next year with a rookie. That does get a little bit tough for his dynasty value, where you say, well,
yeah,
then he's 27 going into year two, and if it works, then he should be a top 12 rookie or a top 12 receiver as a 27-year-old in 3 years. That's a tough that's a tough bet to make in dynasty.
absolutely.
Um, Kind of our last piece of news. This is kind of a confirming a guy on my team. I really like Theo Johnson. He has a 9.99 RAS score. He's insanely athletic. He was doing pretty good last year as far as rookie tight ends go. And then he got hurt. The Giants cut Greg Dulcich. Theo Johnson is their tight end one. I don't know if it's gonna matter, but I think he's worth maybe just a late flyer. He in my opinion, he'd be a good last round pick if he comes out the week one. He's gonna be on your bench. If he comes out week one and has one target, no catches, then you cut him for whoever the big pickup of the week is, and you move on with your life. Um, but tight end is just such a hard position that I like taking shots, and hopefully one of them works out. Maybe he's one of those guys. Today was the deadline for the 53-man roster. So all the teams have cut down to the 53 man. There was a lot of people cut. We were looking at a couple of them. There's a couple names that you recognize from a couple years ago. You're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy." Isaiah Simmons got cut from the Packers. That was kind of my guy that I was like, "Oh, I remember that name when he was coming in with Herbert." Um, so yeah, I mean, like we said at the top, it's getting close to the season. They're cutting down to their 53 man. There are no games this week. This is the week off. And then next Thursday, 9 days from now, we ride.
Who you got? Who you got in game one? You got the Eagles or the Cowboys?
It's pretty comfortably Eagles.
To
I
cover
don't.
to cover the spread.
Yeah, I was actually looking at this today. The spread is 7.
Really, I've seen 6.5. Maybe it's back at 7.
It was at 7 on DraftKings. I didn't check
Okay.
anywhere else. But I mean, for a divisional game, that is fairly hard to cover. I will say if Micah Parsons isn't in, I don't know if that's baked into the line yet. Um, there's a
There'll be a
chance
ramp up
Micah's not
period.
in.
There's a chance he's not there. There's a chance he's not playing a full complement of snaps. There's a chance he just missed the entire training camp and isn't as effective. It'll be interesting for sure.
I think I think just because it's a divisional game and week one never goes as planned, I think I'd probably take the Cowboys on the spread. Um, I could definitely see the Cowboys losing by 30.
We got a
Uh,
bad run defense, man. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, it's hard. You look at the Eagles and you can't really poke holes. You know what I mean? And there are some holes you could poke in the Cowboys. But yeah, it's a divisional game, man. It's a divisional game. Quarterback advantage of Cowboys, probably. Possibly. I'm getting a little high
wow,
here. Getting a little high
wow.
here. They're
We
close at the very least.
we must be getting late in the episode. We've got a Dak Prescott over Jalen Hurts take.
You disagree?
I think
Like firmly? Do you, I think I'm probably taking Jalen Hurts if I'm starting a franchise. I don't know. It depends on a couple things.
I think I'd
If I
probably
have a
have Jalen
contender,
if you're a contender.
if I'm a contender, I'll probably take Jalen. But if I'm a middle of the pack team, give me Dak. Yeah, Dak's a much better passer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think I don't know. I guess we'll probably never know, but would the tush push be as good? Like, how much is Jalen Hurts and how much was the O line? Because they replaced Kelsey and he was still good, but the rest of their offensive line is still top tier.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts squats like 700 pounds. So,
You're right. We are late in the episode if we're talking about could Dak run the tush push.
oh man. Okay, that's probably a good spot to wrap it up then. I don't have anything else.
Yeah,
Um,
good
all right.
episode.
Well, yeah, we'll
RJ
see
over
you next
Chuba,
week.
baby.
Our next episode will be breaking down week one stuff. I don't know exactly what we'll be doing yet, but we'll be getting into our regular season schedule, which is exciting. We'll have to kind of work out the kinks on how our end season is going to go.
Figure out what our in-season schedule is because I have no idea right now.
Me neither. I think we know what conversation we're going to have. All right. We're starting to ramble now. I think this is a good spot to wrap up episode number 14, and we'll be back next week with episode number 15.